Hello, everybody. This is Refried Scenes.
And this is Mrs. Norman Maine.
That's right. It's a mega movie extravaganza this episode of Refried Scenes. We are watching A star is born.
That is not an echo effect. We are watching all four. A Star is Born.
Stars is born? Stars are born. Look, there's a lot of them. What we're going to do is we're going to record our thoughts after each one. So we just sat down and watched the 1937 version of A Star is Born, the only non-musical of the bunch. This one stars Janet Gaynor and Frederick March. And I guess we should just go through the story real quick.
Yeah, let's go through the story real quick.
Okay.
And see, we'll press pause and then come back after we watch each one.
Yeah. Okay, so this one tells the story of Esther Blodgett, I believe she was born in Minnesota. I think she's in Minnesota.
I'm sure, some Midwest town.
Town. And she dreams of being a star because she loves to watch the movies of Mr. Norman Maine. And her grandmother gives her money to go to Hollywood. And she spends a lot of time in a boarding house not getting work because it's Hollywood.
Yeah, that's cool. She goes to auditions and doesn't get all the roles.
Doesn't get the part. But one night her friend from the boarding house, who's a director, gets her a job as a waitress at an insider party. And she meets Norman Maine, who basically kind of crushes on her immediately. Norman's an alcoholic. From the start, Norman is an alcoholic.
Yeah.
She sees him first at the Hollywood Bowl, where he is completely drunk and missing his seat and screaming at photographers. And somehow this is attractive to her.
Is it that that's attractive to her, or that it's somebody she's idolized for years?
That's probably it.
Yeah. She's got the rose-tinted glasses on and not seeing those red flags.
Right.
Although, when he proposes, she says, no.
She says, no, you drink too much and you're wasting your money. And yeah, but then he says he will get sober.
Right. So they get married.
And he gets her a job. Actually, before they get married, he gets her a role in a picture. And she actually shines and becomes this kind of instant star.
And then he proposes to her.
And it's like this big Hollywood brouhaha, Norman Maine and Vicki Lester, because they change her name from Esther Blodgett to Vicki Lester.
I imagine this would have been like your high-profile Hollywood marriage, like Aniston and Pitt.
Yeah. Only here they go to the Justice of the Peace because they want to elope, and they have to actually sneak out because the studio wants to plan the elopement, which is that seems pretty true to what Hollywood was at that point, because when you had a contract with a studio, they basically owned you. So they had to get permission from the producer, from the studio head, to actually marry. And they get married, and Vicky's star rises, and Norman's star falls because he's an alcoholic and he can't stop drinking.
And when he's consumed too much alcohol, he's an angry drunk.
Yeah.
And a violent drunk, would you say, or just rowdy?
He's just rowdy. I don't think the only time he gets like physical, Vicky wins an Academy Award, and she's in the middle of her acceptance speech. He comes in totally drunk and demands
a little jealous that he's not getting an award that night.
Right. He demands an award for worst performance because he's had the 3 worst performances of the year, and he gestures really grandly, and he, not realizing that she's coming up behind him, he smacks her.
Yeah, but that was not an intentional.
It's not intentional. So he's not like violent. He's just very loud and rowdy drunk.
Drunk and disorderly is like the arrest.
Right. Because eventually he does go to rehab, they call it a sanitarium. I think that's what they called it in 1937. Mm-hmm. It's technically rehab to dry out, because he realizes that he has a problem. And he does, and he gets out, but he realized that everybody hates him because he was just a nasty drunk.
Yeah, he was an ass.
So he goes to a bar, or he goes to a race, and he's at the bar, and he's saying hello to people and ordering a ginger ale. And everyone's like, oh, it's so weird to see has-beens. And the studio press guy, who just loathes him, is just terrible to him, and he immediately starts drinking again.
Yeah, he goes on like a few days of a bender.
And gets picked up for drunk driving, which astounds me that he hasn't been picked up for drunk driving before this.
Now, here's where I'm thinking in my head as I watch this, how much time is passing? How long was he sober? How long have they been married? How many movies has she done by now? There is not really a concept of time.
Right.
Her look does not change. His look changes
only when he's drunk, and then he just gets ruffled.
He just looks, looks more rumpled and not quite polished. But there's not like aging.
Right.
So, and nobody's, there's no text at the bottom of scenes 2 years later, 5 years later, 10 years later, nothing.
The arrest happens at Christmas time.
That's true. And so she gets him out of jail New Year's Day.
And then, of course, she because he's having such a hard time staying sober, she tells her producer that she's going to quit. She's going to leave Hollywood and devote her time to rehabilitating him. Oh, dear. Not a happy day for feminism in this movie.
No.
But he overhears this and decides he's going to save her the problem and just kills himself, basically. He goes into the ocean. They have like it is the most romantic suicide I've ever seen on film. I mean, they really try to romanticize
this.
He looks at her, hey, I just want one last look. And I was like, God, his wife, because she's gonna go take a nap or whatever, and he's gonna go for a morning wade in the ocean, and and of course he just swims out, and she's devastated, and she's gonna quit acting anyway because she just can't handle it, and her grandma, who gave her the money to go to, you may hear kittens in the background. I got new kittens, and they're very loud.
I think this is their moment to shine.
Oh, yes. Hi, Artemis. You got something to say about the movie?
Yes, I am the next star. Daddy has
a star is born here, right now. She's going to quit Hollywood anyway because she doesn't want to do it anymore.
And the grandma shows up. I mean, she's got the fur coat on now. She's got the hat.
Vicky's obviously been sending her money. Grandma's decked out.
Hey, I respect that.
I respect it.
That's the best decision Vicky Lester slash
Esther Blodgett
has made. It's to not forget how she got there.
So Grandma goes there and says, I'm so proud of you, and you don't do this. And how would he feel knowing that you quit? Well, I don't know. We can't ask him because the douchebag committed suicide rather than get sober.
It just really feels like
they should like
the main character here
title all of this. Well, I haven't seen any of the others. I have not seen any of these start to finish.
Same here.
Okay.
Same here. This is my first time watching any of these.
They should subtitle
intentionally.
This
I did not want to watch
I have a feeling that they're all going to be like this, but they should subtitle this the fragility of the male ego. Because he can't handle the fact that his wife is like this big superstar and he is not.
But let me ask you, because this was my impression of at least this movie, that our main character, Vicky Lester, cannot make a solid decision on her own.
No,
she's being influenced by the producer,
everybody,
her husband,
her director friends,
the people at the boarding house,
right,
her grandma. She does not stand on her own for one single thing.
No. She wants to go to Hollywood, and her grandmother gives... The only thing that you can say is that her grandmother gave her the money, but she did actually go to Hollywood. And she stayed. She didn't immediately, turn tail and run back when she didn't immediately get a job.
That's true. She could have easily been like, I can't hack it here,
right,
and gone back
home. But in the end, it's like... And I suppose it is true that sometimes you need an inside person. Norman Maine gets her first lead role because he thinks she's cute. And it is really, he likes her, and he basically wants to get in her pants in a 1937 way. but that's why he gets her the job, because he thinks she's cute. It's not... She doesn't have this brilliant talent that is immediately present, because the studio has to rename her, remake her, train her. You get this montage.
Yes.
I do like the montage where the makeup guys are just talking over her, not even asking her opinion as they determine what her look is going to be.
That was a fun scene, and I did enjoy the wardrobe of this movie. I thought her hair was too bold when they did the red, and then again when they did the blonde. But again, this is for stage makeup, so it's understandable. But her outfits, I did enjoy.
Yeah,
and
I think the performances are fine. I think Janet Gaynor she's always struck me as kind of meek, and maybe it's the voice, because she's got a very soft voice
and size. She's petite.
Tiny. I did like Frederick March. He's very suave in a 1937 way. I can see where people would fall for him, even though he's just so obviously an alcoholic from the start. It's not like he's hiding it at all.
No. But people found that charming at the time. I
know.
mean, when he was at the bars, people were like pouring it.
Yeah, nobody cut him off. It's like he'd ask for a whiskey and soda, and it'd be like 90% whiskey and this tiny little soda on the top, and everyone was just like, okay, whatever, Norman.
Yeah, this is the life of excess.
We'll make the paper's stories go away when you can't hack your booze. So, I mean, this isn't a bad film. I'm probably going to have the same problem with this one. I'm probably going to have the same problem with each of these movies, and I'll probably save that till the very end, because I want to see if they change some things in future versions. This one to me was just like, okay, Esther, you need to sit yourself down and you need to get your shit together.
Right.
Because you can't get his shit together. He doesn't want you to.
And last thing I'm going to say about this one is the pacing was weak.
Yeah, it was.
It was a weak beginning, in terms of pacing. Story was fine. And then at the end.
Yeah.
At the middle was fine. But the character, all the character introduction and her struggling through auditions, and then at the end with like, how many times are we going to see him drunk and her bailing him out?
Yeah, and so there were times. This is the shortest of the four. It's about an hour and a half. It felt longer. It felt much longer.
2 hours.
And that's mostly because it just slowed down so much, because they were focusing so much on the romance, and I'm using air quotes here, and how much they loved each other.
It was codependency.
Yeah. And that end scene where he's decided to kill himself is just drug on for so much. It's like, oh God, could you just go for the swim? I hate saying that.
You can see it coming too. The framing has, this gorgeous sunset with lapping waves, and you're just like, okay, go on.
Just go.
Let's wrap it up here.
I don't think that's what you're supposed to be feeling, but that's kind of what I felt. It's like, do you want me to get the door for you, sir? So, I mean,
we're gonna be so much worse by the end of the fourth one after a few more sangrias.
Oh yeah. So that is 1937's A Star Is Born. Next up, I'm going to pause this, and we are going to watch 1954. I want to say.
I'm gonna.
Yeah, I think it's 1954. So when we come back, we'll watch that one. Okay.
Well,
that was number 2.
That was the Judy Garland
and James Mason. Yeah, 1954. 54? Yeah, 1954.
Boy, and it lasted 27 hours was the runtime.
The subtitle of this A Star Is Born is How to Have Judy Garland Carry Your Entire Fucking Film and Make Her Look Like Shit for 70% of it.
Oh my God, the styling was horrendous.
They constantly dressed her like she was fat, and she's not a fat woman. She was never a fat woman.
No, and even if she was a fat woman, that's nothing to hide either.
Yeah.
So I just... there's so much cringe.
There's so much cringe in this, yeah. So this is the first musical version, and it follows the original very closely. So there's really no point in going through the story because, I mean, they use lines from the first film.
They do use lines from the first one, which I usually appreciate in a remake. What I don't appreciate is a musical with, 17 numbers that don't have anything to do with carrying the story.
Yeah.
I consider the definition of a musical to be something that that tells the story of the movie in song. And this does not do that.
It doesn't. And for one thing, the only person who sings in this film...
The only person
is Judy Garland.
Every song...
I get it. James Mason probably isn't a singer.
But they had enough extras to carry it. They could have hired a leading man that does sing.
But every song here is just... It's Vicki Lester acting in a Vicki Lester film, and it has nothing to do...
At one point, there's even a scene where they go to a movie premiere of hers, and within the movie that we're watching is a movie that they're watching, which is full of flashbacks
within the movie. It's
so
an Inception type thing. And what was so hilarious is right after that scene, it went to intermission, and I was like, oh God, I hope this is an intermission for the actual movie we're watching and not the movie within the movie that we're watching.
And at one point, this is mostly earlier in the movie, and I'm not going to fault the movie making for this because I believe this was post-production, but there are scenes that are just still stock footage images with the audio of the movie playing over top.
Yeah, I believe
so that takes you away from
there's
the
a whole section in between Norman, Maine, because here they are still Esther Blodgett and Norman, Maine. And they meet up, and he gets her to... First off, Esther is a little different in this one, because she's actually working when he meets her. She's not necessarily a very...
She plays in a cabaret, like jazz band.
She's
quintet.
She's touring with a band, so she has a job. It's not like the first film where she's just fresh off the bus and looking for work. She's actually touring, and he tells her to quit the band because she's got a special talent, and he's going to
And
flourish
this is
that.
The second or third time they're meeting.
Yeah.
The first time they meet, he totally creeps her out
so
to where she steps behind her pianist and she's waving the no flags, like whatever this guy says, he's not taking me home, bail me out here. She's like giving those signals to her pianist and I'm sure good friend.
Yeah.
Like I've done many times.
Yeah. And Norman here he's kind of a mean drunk.
Oh, I wouldn't even say he's a mean drunk. He's
so arrogant.
Entitled.
He's very entitled and very arrogant. But he tells her to meet him the next day, and he's going to get her an audition, and then he goes into a blackout drunk and goes on location for 6 weeks. So he basically leaves her high and dry, and that whole section is where we don't get any film. We get very little film. It's all pictures. And then
but some of it is not pictures.
There's not pictures from the movie.
Some of it is, obviously a fashion magazine photo shoot, and just weird picture stills from another movie that either of them have been in. It was really disjointed.
Yeah, and I understand this was probably a restoration project, but at that point, it took you completely out of the film.
Yeah, Carol and I were talking that what would have been better in this scenario? Text on pages?
I would have preferred a scrolling text of 6 weeks later, Norman...
Right.
Yeah. Just some scrolling text.
Norman's on set, but he's looking for her, which I did find sweet. We didn't get that in the original. Norman does have like a longing for
Esther in this.
For Esther and wanting to reconnect with her. But it could have been a 2-minute.
It could have been a 2-minute recap or a 2-minute just something other than these just still photographs on the screen. And this goes on for a good 20 minutes.
Oh yeah.
20 to 25 minutes.
It's like off and on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's very disjointed at the beginning, and then you get into the musical numbers, and the musical numbers have nothing to do with the story. And that is very it's very unmusical for me.
Yeah, and I don't think we need to go over the story again because we just did that. It's the same story.
It's the same story. It's literally the same
The
exact
only difference
story.
is, as Carol said...
Esther is more... Yeah. But even then, Judy Garland plays her... Because Judy Garland was in her early 30s when this was made. But she plays
looked it up.
Esther.
Age 32, 33.
Yeah. But she plays Esther much younger.
Which pissed me off because why have a beginning where she's got a career? Now, mind you, not a wildly successful Hollywood career, but she has a career, and she even describes how she puts makeup on in gas station rest area stops. So this woman has seen some things.
Yeah.
She knows how to carry herself around, through situations where there's probably other pushy men that have tried to get her in a car or get their way up to her apartment or whatever. I think I've been there.
I've been there.
You audience members have been there. This is not a woman that...
She's not going to... Yeah, she's not easily... She's not naive. But she's playing her naive, and it was really irritating.
Very irritating.
Because I get it. With the first one, she's fresh off the train from Minnesota.
You buy the innocence in that one.
I don't buy the innocence here because she's playing in jazz clubs at 3 o'clock in the morning.
No, and you know that there are all kind of creeps hitting on her. You know.
Yeah.
So, I mean, no.
Yeah,
I just don't accept that. And then all of a sudden she gets, in the car with Norman and... he's asking her about herself, and she's just like, I don't know. I just, whenever thoughts come to me, I just put my makeup on. It's just like,
I reached for the shampoo, and it's like, oh my God, what?
Cringe.
It was so cringy. And some of the costumes they had her in for these musical numbers are bad. There's one musical number in particular where she's actually, it's not on set. She's actually performing it for Norman because she comes home from work and he's, of course, not working because he's a drunk. And she performs what she's done during the day because he asks her how her day has been. And it goes from country to country. And at one point she puts a lampshade on her head to be in China. And I'm like, oh my God. There's so much cultural impropriety in this film.
Yes.
Toward the end, there's obvious brown face.
Yeah.
The beginning scene, you have some Native American costumes that are just horrible.
Yeah. So we've got issues with misogyny and cultural appropriation and
it's very kind of cringy. And in the end, he once again overhears that she's going to stop her career to take care of him, and he kills himself. Same way, he just walks into the ocean. Here he says he's going to go swimming. I'm like, what are you going to do? Well,
yeah, he's been sleeping off of, how long of a hangover must he have had? And so he presents this as though it's a new idea he has of, instead of drinking, he's going to get into fitness and live a healthier lifestyle, which I don't think that that's unique to his situation. I think a lot of people, when they are going off an addiction, they replace it with a healthier sort of addiction.
Yeah.
And then we can learn moderation from there. So that's just what he was doing, and his excuse to
go swimming in the ocean.
Time to
go swim
get out there in the ocean long enough to drown.
To drown. And here, it's not her grandmother that pulls her out of her funk. It's her ex-band member who gives her a pep talk that I think you appreciated far more than me because...
Yeah, Carol didn't like it at all.
I didn't like it at all.
For it.
Because his attitude was like, you're wasting the talent that Norman was proud of. And it's like... It's one thing that was Norman proud of her, though, because Norman in this movie is just an egotistical shit most of the time. And his fragile ego is what destroys everything. He goes through rehab, but the first person that says anything bad to him, and there's the scotch, it's like...
Yeah. And my argument is not that his words were true in this pep talk, because they weren't. It was just a hard truth that she needed something drastic to wake her up out of her somber mourning enough to get back to her passion.
Yeah.
Which was singing and being
apparently
in pictures.
And apparently being Mrs. Norman Maine, because once again we end with the hello, this is Mrs. Norman Maine, and everybody gives her a standing ovation, and I'm like, why is that?
Yeah, all those motherfuckers were the same people encouraging his drinking, encouraging the body shaming for her, encouraging the cultural appropriation.
And they're giving her
all of you people.
Yeah, they're giving her a standing ovation for basically saying, "I'm a wife." That's it. So
she should have done indie pictures from then on.
From then on, just, you know what? I'm doing character studies. I'm not going to dance in one more ugly ass costume ever again.
Oh my god!
This one it's 3 hours long. It is 3 hours long. There's a good 7 or 8 songs, and none of them have anything to do with the plot. It's just Judy Garland singing Judy Garland. And I gotta say, she's the one that carried the picture.
She carried the entire picture, and to be treated so poorly.
Yeah.
It's just awful.
Because you can tell the producers probably told her she was fat. There are times when she's practicing her dancing, she's wearing very oversized shirts.
Ladies, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
You know it when you see it.
Yeah, you know it when you see it. The costumes where it's like, oh, I don't put anything tight around my waist, or when she does get into those tiny waist costumes, you can tell she's not breathing. You can really tell she's not breathing. And it's painful to watch, because it's like, okay, here's this supreme talent that you've got carrying your damn show. And yes, I appreciate the irony that Judy Garland's playing the sober one in this couple. But she's carrying your damn picture, and you're treating her and making her look terrible.
Look terrible. And so she's accepting bad behavior from the man in her life, obviously, because this is what she's used to.
Yeah.
I'm going to talk for a minute about the scene when the studio gives her the new name and makes her up. And she's got a red wing on. It looked a lot like the original character from the original movie. So she has those red curls. Her makeup is different. Like, they drew her lips outside of her lips, and I don't remember what else.
Her eyebrows. They completely redid her eyebrows.
They completely redid the eyebrows. Yeah. And then when Norman comes home, he doesn't even recognize her. He just kind of sees another woman. He's like, oh, yeah, have a good day. I'm on my way home. Well, then when he realizes it's her, he's also being forceful in that, oh, you need to take that stuff off. And she's like, no, this is what they did to me. And he gets the face wash cream and, like, smothers it over her face. So, like, it's in her hair.
It's in her eyes.
This is
in her mouth.
It would have been so much better if you'd have been like, oh, honey, what did they do to you?
Look.
This is...
wasn't... And not saying I disagree with him, because she looked bad.
She did look bad, but there was a way to respect her while saying, no one sat her down and said, do you like this look? And I understand that this is 1954, and that's what the studio is going to do. They're going to give you a new name, and they're going to give you a new look. But Norman, this guy who supposedly loves her, doesn't sit her down and go, do you like this? He just immediately goes, wash that off your face. And it's just this forceful, prickish move. Yeah.
But it's supposed to be charming.
It could have been a sweet moment. It really could have.
Yeah.
There was a better way to do that, and they just could not think out of their man pants on how to respect a woman enough to do that.
Yeah. So, that was the 1954 version. Now we're going forward 22 years to 1976.
I can't wait.
Yeah, so we're going to pause this. We're going to go listen to Barbra Streisand sing. And, we'll check back in with you after this one.
Well, we're back.
We're back. Number 3 is done. 1976. Barbra Streisand, Chris Christopherson.
And this is different because they are successful and aspiring musicians.
That's right.
As opposed to actors.
Correct. And it's not Esther Blodgett. It's Esther Hoffman.
Yes.
And it's not Norman Maine. It's John Norman Howard. So they've changed the names.
Yep.
But he's still a drunk and a drug addict. And she's still codependent on him.
She's successful in that she's got herself a nice apartment in Hollywood. Yeah. She has a singer, she is a singer, and has 2 backup singers, and they play
regular gigs.
They play regular gigs, enough to where she can afford that apartment, and they do commercial jingles.
And he is riding on one song, which we hear like 7 times during this movie. Are you a figment of my imagination?
It plays out like sort of like maybe an Aerosmith type of band that plays large outdoor arenas.
Yeah.
And this is not at the beginning of their musical career.
No.
This band has been established.
And he is
and draws a crowd.
He's so far into his addiction that he can only get through like 2 songs per gig, and then he'll get pissed and do something outrageous on stage and leave. So he goes to the club where Esther's singing, and I have to say the first part of this worked really well for me, and I had my hopes up because he does, she gets him out of the club because he throws a punch at Freddy Krueger, a very, very young, very, very rough young Robert Englund shows up. And I'm like, I just really wish he had said, I'll see you in your dreams. But but yeah, he throws a punch at Freddy Krueger, and she gets him out of the bar. And he takes her home, but here it's not this weird get into my car woman type thing. He has a driver, and
he's trying to rush her into the limo before a swarm of fans are going to, surround the limo.
Yeah. So it doesn't seem as creepy as the other 2. And she does not invite him into her apartment. She says, come back for breakfast.
He says, I want to go in your apartment.
Yeah, he's complimenting her eyes. He's complimenting her ass. He's complimenting everything about her. And she says, come back for breakfast. You're not coming in. So I actually kind of like that. I like the fact that he slept in his car outside waiting for breakfast.
Had his driver go get a pizza for them.
Yeah, because he knew she was not going to make beef and biscuits, and I have no idea what that is. But I'm assuming it's just biscuits with beef? I don't know. But she says she's going to make beef and biscuits, but she doesn't. He brings a pepperoni pizza instead.
Maybe it's an Esther Hoffman thing.
I guess so. But he has her play him a song, and she doesn't. It's the signature song of the movie Evergreen, but she doesn't have lyrics for it yet, so she's just doing doo-doo-doos.
It's very sweet, I think.
It's very sweet, and he actually falls asleep during it, but it's actually not a bad interaction. The first part of this film really worked, and he takes her to an outdoor concert arena thing, and then gets totally wasted on coke and booze, and they leave her there because he
gets injured.
Yeah,
and the EMTs rush him to the hospital, I guess.
Yeah.
So everybody's kind of forgotten that, he's brought this woman here 5 minutes ago.
So they kind of lose touch, but he finds her again through a commercial jingle, which harkens back to the Judy Garland one, because that's how Norman Maine reconnected with that Esther Blodgett, was he heard her on a commercial.
They meet again by happenstance.
Right.
Recording in 2 separate studio spaces in this one large building.
Yeah. And then his next gig, he pulls her on stage, and here's where my interest started to wane a little bit. This is a totally wrong crowd for Esther's style of music. Esther is Barbra Streisand, and she sings Barbra Streisand songs. It's very easy listening, it's very mellow, and John Norman is this hard rock guy. So I'm not buying.
Shirt off.
Yeah.
Lots of guitar riffs.
Bottle of booze on an amp in the back that he's regularly taking a swig out of. Half clad.
His fans are motorcycle driving.
And half naked women. I'm not buying that this crowd would warm to her style of music that quickly, but they immediately do. It's also like an American Indian charity gig that he's doing. And I use the term American Indian because that's what they say in the movie. So I'm not even I'm not even certain why they don't have native singers on stage. But I'm not buying.
It's like a step above the cultural appropriation
from the last one,
from the previous two movies. But it's still the 70s. We're not quite there yet.
Because that's the concert where I was like, oh come on, because everybody's like cheering and standing for her, and oh yeah, you're great, and I'm like, I'm not buying that this crowd would want her music. But she immediately skyrockets and gets an agent and cuts an album, and her career is just like going straight to the top.
Yeah.
And he can't.
The band doesn't want
the band doesn't want to play with him anymore because he can't finish a tour. He can't finish a concert. So they're moving on and doing new things.
Right. And then she goes on tour, and while she's on tour, he gets phone calls not for himself, for her. So he kind of wallows in this the publicity doesn't want me anymore.
Right. And
the reporters don't want me. They want Esther. And she does not change her name. It's somebody suggests it, and she says, no, that's a lot of work to go through.
Yeah, so she goes by Esther Hoffman the whole time. They do get married. She kind of bullies him into... For once, he recognizes that he is bad for her. He doesn't ask her to marry him. She asks him to marry her. And he's like, no, I'm an alcoholic. I'm bad with money. I ruin everything I touch. And he is correct on all 3 points. You can't say the man lied to her. But she insists that they get married, so they get married. And she tries to talk him into going on tour with her. He knows it's a bad idea because they're not the same audience. And even he recognizes that they're not the same audience. But then her agent was like, no, you can't. So she feels let down. She feels like he lied to her by saying that he would go on tour and then reneging and saying that he wouldn't. But that's not necessarily him. It's not like he
wasn't the bad guy in that situation.
Right. There
was no bad guy in that situation.
Yeah, it was just a bad... It was never going to work. This tour was never going to work. And her agent was like, well, why don't you produce the show? You could go. And even he's like, well, I can't manage a bank account. How am I going to produce this? So it's a lack of connection as far as talent here. He knows one thing, and that's hard rock, and he can't do it anymore because he's an addict. And she is a very talented singer, but doesn't sing his style of music. So she was going to have to go out on her own at some point anyway.
He does start writing songs that are more, I would say they're country.
Yeah. It's more of a new country type sound.
And he was going to record that album, but, he's his own worst enemy.
Yeah. Because he ends up sleeping with a reporter who's trying to get an interview with Esther and thinks her best way to do this is to fuck Esther's husband. And that fight between them was just the cringiest thing. The I hate you, I love you, I love you. I can't stand fights like that in romantic movies.
Yeah, they give a bad message to young impressionable minds.
Yeah, and she's smacking him and telling him to fight back, and that is never a good look in a movie when a woman just hits a man and says, fight me back, fight me back. No, 100 times no. But she's biting him and saying, I hate you. And then, of course, he's kissing her and saying, I love you. And finally she relents and says, I love you. And they go back to their little house in Arizona, which they built, apparently, with their own little bare hands. And I'm not buying that these two built this house. It's far too symmetrical for this addict to have made. If the walls were falling down, maybe. We
already know he knows one thing. Yeah. And that is not construction work. But we do believe that John loves Esther.
Yeah.
In this
is the one movie where I actually kind of believed the relationship. I went online, and this got trashed by critics because they said they had no chemistry.
Oh, I disagree.
I disagree. I think the couple had chemistry. I think their careers did not have chemistry.
I think they did have chemistry, and I think he had respect for her in 1954, Star is Born, and 1937, A Star is Born. Norman did not have respect for Esther.
No.
But in this one, he does.
And he recognizes her talent, and it's not a question of how can her talent make me look better. He just recognizes that she's a very good musician.
Yeah.
So we never get the point where she's going to give up her career for him. As a matter of fact, she flat out tells him, you can trash your life, you're not going to trash mine. Which I appreciate. I kind of appreciate the idea that she's not going to give up her career to babysit this addict. It's the first time that has happened in any of these movies.
And another first, when she goes out on stage at the end after mourning his passing, she does not introduce herself as Mrs. John Norman Howard.
Yeah.
An announcer announces her as Esther Hoffman Howard.
Right.
So there is that, but then he wrote credits, and I see that Barbara Streisand was the producer of the movie. I'm like, oh, that's why. A woman
produced it. He doesn't flat out. He doesn't go out into the ocean and kill himself like suicide. He basically drinks and drives himself into a car accident.
Oh, I think he intentionally got in the car, put on Esther's song, or 8-track tape, and
yeah, it's an 8-track tape. Oh God!
And gets in his flashy car and he drives off a cliff intentionally, with those being the last memories that he has.
I don't think it's not like. I think it's one of those suicides where it was inevitable that it was going to happen, but he didn't want to put a gun in his mouth. Or make it obvious.
Right, because you still want the press to be able to say this was an accident. Which I think was the case with the first one and two also.
For 1 and 2, his tragic swimming accident was how both other movies.
Yeah. You see newspaper clippings that nobody says it's a suicide. Nobody.
So, and then there's a tribute concert for him, and that's where she is introduced as Esther Hoffman Howard. And then she sings a very long song.
And song or 3 songs? I
don't know. It was a very long singing bout from Barbara Streisand, and then we just freeze frame on her face. And that was I have to say, that was 1976. I like the soundtrack more in this one than the 54 one. The songs, at least, it makes sense
that both of them sang.
Yeah, both of them sang.
This was not a one-sided.
They had backup singers.
It wasn't Judy Garland carrying the entire piece or Barbara Streisand carrying the entire piece. They both sang.
Because Christopherson was a musician in his own right.
And I don't think it was a bad idea to have them be so different musically.
Yeah.
I think that was a good idea.
I think if he could have gotten his drinking and drug addiction under control, this would have been a very successful marriage. I don't think either of the other two couples would have worked.
No.
This is the first time where I was like, this is salvageable if he could get his shit together. At no point does he enter rehab, though.
At no point.
No. In the other two, you had him going to a sanitarium getting dry.
Right.
Here, he never...
He doesn't get arrested for drunken disorderly conduct.
He's never arrested. Even though he's throwing punches in public areas and throwing boxes of booze through DJ windows, he's never arrested. And he never makes any attempt to get sober.
Right.
Which is a problem with this film. And I don't know if Esther... I can't see this Esther staying that long without him trying.
Especially going on tour, because she was very codependent in the beginning. But knowing that she had to tour on her, without her own, that would sort of break that codependency.
Yeah.
So...
And I don't think she would have stayed knowing that he was doing absolutely nothing to change the situation. So this one worked a little bit better in some ways and less better in other ways. So
this is my winner so far.
In the end, we're going to do a comparison and choose our favorite Normans, our favorite Esthers, and our favorite movies.
And our favorite cameo appearances. I know yours.
Right. Gary Busey does show up in this one. Very young Gary Busey. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, he was more than a cameo.
He was actually, the supplier for John Norman, because he was constantly the guy there with the Coke on his hand for him right before going on stage. Yep. So, this one, it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad. Would I ever watch it again? I can't see myself ever watching this one again. So that's 3 down and 1 to go.
1 to go. Let's do it.
Let's bring on Gaga. And that was the last star that was lastly born.
There will be no more stars.
No more stars are born. No more stars born. No. So 2018.
We're done.
We're done. 2018. Lady Gaga, Bradley Cooper.
Directed by Bradley Cooper.
Yeah. Here, their names are Allie. She has no last name. It's just Allie.
It's Allie Dice Clay.
Allie Dice Clay. and Jackson Mate, because Norman, I guess, was just too...
It was too normie.
Too normie. So he's Jackson Mate, or Jack. And this tells basically the same story.
Yeah.
This actually mimics the 76 version a bit more than any of the other versions.
Yeah, there's mostly an homage to the 76 version and a little bit of the 54.
The 54, yeah.
But
yeah, this one
going over differences. I'm trying to. Well, she becomes like a pop princess. I guess that would be different.
She starts off in a drag bar. He sees her perform in a drag bar where she's doing an Edith Piaf impersonation, and she, of course, is the only woman at the drag bar. Again, this one, like the 76 version, I was kind of with it at the beginning.
Oh, yeah.
Except
I was really enjoying it.
I felt Bradley Cooper was just such an addict. I can't imagine anyone taking any relationship seriously with him because he was just so drunk and so stoned so often.
And you have the additional issue he's dealing with hearing loss.
Yeah.
As a, later in life musician.
So, so he's depressed about that too. Here, oh man, this one had a middle that just dragged for me so much. Because he meets her and, immediately flies her to a concert and throws her on stage and makes her sing for a huge crowd of people. And she's an instant success. And they immediately go on tour together. It's like boom, boom, boom.
And those are the good days.
Yeah.
Between them.
Yeah. Because, and to me, this is a problem with this Norman main character. It's because she's singing his type of song. When she meets Rez, who becomes her new manager, she turns more popish, and he hates that because she's no longer singing, their songs or the songs that they started singing.
I kind of told the line on that one where, I see where he was coming from. The music she was making, the lyrics she was writing were not
bad.
They were meaningless. And she has a real songwriting talent that was being wasted. But also, surely that wasn't completely out of her element because she was happy doing it.
Yeah.
And like Carol said, she came from the drag show lifestyle, which is dance music, pop music.
Yeah. It's very popish music. She's not going to be singing Shallow in a drag club.
It's not country.
Yeah, so to me, I don't know, this Norman Maine, and I'm calling him Norman Maine because that's just, but he came across as a little bit selfish here. It's like, you're not doing my stuff, I'm going to drink even more or do even more drugs. And she, wins Grammys, and this is the nature of the over-the-topness of this one, where he's so drunk at the Grammys, he's peeing himself on stage.
Yeah, he kind of, passes out a little bit on the stage with her, and
then
urinates.
Just wets his pants. And I'm like, oh my gosh.
Then collapses.
Yeah. And, his friend finds him passed out in the street up in front of his house, and I'm like, this is so over the top that I'm baffled how his brother, who is his manager, how he did not put him into rehab years ago.
Well, nowadays you can't put somebody into rehab. They have to
willingly go.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just seems like Bobby could have forced the issue at some point. But this isn't a terrible... None of these are... Well, I don't know. The 54 version I just didn't like at all. But we'll get to that. This one, to me, really dragged in the middle when they were just setting up her pop princess persona and him just declining more and more. It became kind of the same thing over and over. He gets drunk. He doesn't like her music. He gets drunk. He doesn't like her music. He gets drunk. He doesn't like her music. And it's like, can you just get to rehab, please? And here he does go to rehab, unlike 76 version, and gets clean, and it doesn't last at all.
No.
And
you have somebody instigating the final scene. You have Rez, the manager, who is out for his own dollar, basically telling him when he knows Allie isn't there, look, dude, you're ruining everything for her, and she's not going to tell you because she loves you, but I'm telling you.
She's better off without you, and I wish you were far away from her. And here, the final act is not in any way, shape, or form cannot be construed as an accident. He hangs himself. And to me, this was incredibly selfish because he did it at home. And there is a real possibility she may not have sent somebody to check on him in the house, and she would have come home from a concert and found him. And that is like, that's kind of a final fuck you. I don't know. It's my problem with all of these is they're all made to be this grand romance, and none of them are, because they're all toxic relationships, because this dude is an addict before she even meets him in every situation. I wish one of these had where he's sober when he meets her, and they fall in love when he's sober, and he becomes an addict as his career declines. Because to me, this is like, you're not going to fix him. Why would any of these women stay with this man?
Well, that's a story that does need to be told because it happens.
But
right?
Here is 4 different tellings, and none of them are different. He's an addict when she meets him, and he's an addict, he goes off the deep end, and literally in 2 cases.
I liked a little bit more backstory here on Allie because she comes from a family where there is alcoholism and there is substance abuse. So, I've read about how if that's something that's in your past, that is something that usually plays a part in your romantic life. Seeking partners that have the same similar struggles. So that made more sense to me than just boom, here's a chick from Minnesota who knows nothing about life, and then boom, here's another woman that has been in a cabaret, and in
the 37 version, it kind of made sense because she's a teenager coming off the train, and this guy's a movie star.
She really wouldn't know much.
And it's just, oh my gosh, it's a movie star. The 54 version, I just didn't like because when she meets him, Esther actually looks at him and goes, even drunk, he's kind of fun. I'm like, no, he's not.
And that's still, again, that's after she waves no.
Yeah, I don't want to go anywhere with this man. But it's like, even drunk, he's kind of fun. It's like you're
selling yourself short.
Yeah,
and then
in the 76 version, it's kind of the same. She knows he's self-destructive. She knows that he's not just self-destructive. He's like destructive. He trashes stages and he trashes concerts but she's still like.
And in this movie, when she finds him at his friend's house in a stupor, she's like, the next time you're going to have to clean up your own mess. Do you understand what I'm saying? But she doesn't follow through.
She doesn't follow through with that at all. She cleans up his mess the next time. Because the next time is the freaking Grammys. It's, to me, I don't know. Maybe it's because we watched them back to back to back to back to back. It became kind of like, oh my God, would any of you do anything different? And nobody seemed to have the guts to make the story much any different.
And the pacing has been an issue in all
of
four.
them. All four of them have pacing issues.
Yeah. And different places of the movie.
Yeah.
But still, oh my gosh. This one was just like...
There's only so many scenes.
I felt like I was going around a merry-go-round.
Yeah.
Like it was just...
It's just over and over, and it's like...
She's back from the studio recording.
And they're just going to look longingly into each other's eyes, and then he's going to fall over drunk, and then she's going to pick him up, and we're going to do it all again tomorrow. And it's like, oh, I don't know what you expected. So, yeah, so this one, I mean... To me, it mimicked the 76 version a bit more, probably because they're all musicians, and that one moved it from Hollywood to the music industry. And it kind of, the story makes more sense in a music industry way, I think. I think actors, as they get older, because we were talking about, James Mason was in his 40s when he made A Star Is Born, and I'm like, Norman Maine at that point would be looking for character actor pieces because he's not the lead man anymore.
So expecting a lead role
is just kind of outrageous. Yeah. Whereas when you're a music star, you can be 70 whatever and Mick Jagger and still fill a freaking stadium. So it makes a little bit more sense to set this story in the music industry, and it gives them a chance to show off some good vocal talent. I love Lady Gaga's singing. The song Shallow is pretty. I don't know. The songs became, particularly the end songs in both the 76 version and this one, the tribute song at the very end went on. And this one I particularly didn't like because she's singing how she'll never love again. And
she's singing the song he wrote.
Right.
So it's like him saying he'll never love again, which obviously he won't.
But it's... I didn't like that aspect of it where it's like, oh, now I'm going to never love again. And it's like, well...
No, give her 2 weeks.
Give her 2 weeks.
I'm sorry, that's insensitive.
2 months. We'll give them two years. You know what? We're going to give her 2 years. We're going to give her 2 years.
She will love again.
She will love again.
She's young and
she's a pop star. Come on.
Yeah.
There's going to be some other addicted country western singer out there that's... I did like a bit more of the backstory. You got a backstory for Norman Maine in this one, whereas you didn't get a backstory for any of them.
Oh, that's true, too, yeah. I didn't notice that. One thing that was different for me in this one is that Allie had a violent streak there where...
for no reason, she's throwing punches.
Yeah, she punched a dude in the bar that... Yeah, he was asking for a picture, but it wasn't, like, out of hand. It wasn't... It wasn't...
It was...
She's like, you want a picture? I'll give you a picture. And she punches the dude in the face. Like, that was not...
And I don't know why that scene was that way. I'm like, are you just trying to show she's tough? And I'm using air quotes here, because I don't know how tough that makes her.
You could have definitely had some creepy guy come up and give her a reason to punch.
Yeah.
That could have happened, but this was not... This was pretty
tame in a cop bar.
Like, okay, dude, no picture tonight, thanks.
Yeah. So, I'm not quite certain about early Allie in this one. The hair color they gave Gaga in the latter half of this film was horrible. And I think it's deliberately that way, because you're not supposed to like her pop persona. But again, Lady Gaga is a pop persona. So, what are you saying here?
Okay, so let's go over...
Yeah.
Favorite Mr. Maine.
Okay, so favorite John Norman Jackson. Wow. I'm gonna go Chris Christopherson in the 76 version, because he's not over the top drunk and addicted like Bradley Cooper was, and he's not a horrible misogynist like the first, the James Mason one's just a misogynist. The Frederick March one is the 1937 misogyny. It's not blatant, but it's still there every day. So I'm gonna go Chris Christopherson as my favorite. Also, it bugs me that that the Bradley Cooper one in his garage, that to me was like, at least Christopherson had the guts to take it off site in the end.
But see, I'm going to disagree with you, because Chris Christopherson cheated on her.
Yeah.
And when you get in your car drinking, driving that fast over winding roads, even if it's early in the morning and there's not a lot of traffic, he could have hurt somebody else.
True.
So I'm going to pick Bradley Cooper. Now, let me defend my position.
It's his blue eyes, isn't it?
No.
He was doing his best Sam Elliott.
It was not his mumbling either.
Let me tell you something. Don't do an Sam Elliott impersonation when you have cast Sam Elliott in your movie. Because whenever they spoke to each other, it's like, oh, who is Sam Elliott more here?
I like that there was backstory there for both of them, and that he said something sweet to his brother there towards the end. And, there were times off and on where he was drunk and not drunk. So, and there was no misogyny really that I know of, that I picked up on.
No, not really. He did have the guts to go to a gay bar.
Yeah,
to go to a drag bar.
Absolutely.
So, but the fact remains that was the only bar that was open, and he wanted a drink. So it was kind of...
Yeah, but he sat there with
her pal. So it's, he wasn't like...
He signed a drag queen's boobs.
Yep. And sang a song for her. And so it's like, that was where I was on board with it. It was just later on in the movie where he was just stumbling down and wetting himself. And I'm just like, there's just... He'd have more than one handler at this point. He's a big star. He's filling stadiums. Those early concerts in this movie are massive stadiums. And he'd have more than just his brother handling him.
I don't know.
So
neither of them are perfect.
Yeah.
But that was my favorite main.
Main. So favorite Esther Alley. I don't know why they changed her name in this one. Because she's Esther in the other three. Is it just like she didn't like the name Esther? Did Gaga not?
I really don't know.
But yeah, she's so Esther Alley. So who is your favorite Esther?
Barbara Streisand.
I'm going to go Barbara Streisand too.
I didn't think that I would choose that.
I didn't think so either.
But she is streetwise.
Yeah.
She is also, book smart, business smart, just not love smart.
No.
And you know what? We've all
and
had
she
that
had been
period
married
of our life.
before, so it's not like she was, making great choices previously either. But she was working herself. She was by herself, maintaining herself with her career. So it's not like she was living with dad or begging money from grandma or, I don't know what Judy Garland was doing, serving
burgers.
But yeah, she just seemed like a smarter character than the other three.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And yes, Christopherson was obviously an addict, but he had that rock and roll persona, and he wasn't constantly falling down drunk, that I think you would be able to overlook a certain amount of it.
Yeah, he was more functional.
He was more a functional alcoholic.
Right.
So your favorite movie... Okay, well, who's your least favorite Norman?
Least favorite Norman? The 1954.
Yeah, I'm going James Mason all the way. That was just kind of an icky performance.
Oh, I hated him.
Yeah.
I hated him. I don't think the performance was bad, but I hated him.
His Norman was just so condescending and snide and very misogynistic. So, yeah, I did not like that Norman Maine at all. Who is your least favorite Esther?
The first one.
The first one.
I think the first one is really tied for 1 and 2.
And 2. I'm going Judy Garland. I just did not like...
That's valid.
She played it so young when she's like in her 30s, and she played that Esther so
She couldn't figure out what level of naivete she wanted to be.
So,
and that was a huge annoyance for me.
So, favorite Star is Born?
The last one.
Okay, I did look up Rotten Tomatoes because I wanted to see what the Rotten Tomatoes were for these. The 1937 version only has like 25 reviews. It's 100%. 54 version has like 45% reviews. It's got 98%. The 2018...
We need to get on there.
Yeah,
this is what you're telling me.
2018 has like 500 something because it's 2018. That's at 90%.
Wow.
The 76 version is sitting at 35%. But I'm going to choose the 76 version as my favorite. Let me be clear. None of these movies are things I'm going to rush to watch again. I may listen to a couple of songs off the soundtrack of the last two. I didn't like any of the songs that Judy Garland sang. In that 54 version.
Oh my gosh. She has a beautiful voice.
But man, those songs were duds. I love the Spider Queen song that Barbara Streisand sang at the beginning of the 76 version. And I like Shallow. It's a pretty song. But I'm choosing 76 because it was just the easiest to get through, I think. It had the least drag, and it had my favorite Esther in it. So, not that Gaga was bad at all, but I don't know. There was just something about that performance that was just so, how are you not seeing this? How are you not seeing this? But none of these movies are things I'm going to rush out to watch again. I suppose we should say why we did all four of these movies.
Oh, we should.
Yeah. We should. So our friend, hi, Mark.
It's all his fault.
It's all his fault because he told us, and trust me, the irony is not lost here. He told us that he would buy us each a bottle of our chosen booze if we did refried scenes with all four of us Star is Borns.
We get the irony.
So we get the irony. We are getting booze for this.
And earlier I said we would be drinking sangrias. I think I had 3 glasses across 4 movies. About
4 movies, and this is like 10 plus hours of cinema. So trust me, we were not tipsy at all during any of this.
This has been over 2 days, by the way.
Most of it on this one. So I think I have been starved and borned out.
Yeah.
But, our friend Oh Hi Mark, check out his Twitch channel. It's O_Hi_Mark on Twitch. I'm about to go do his stream. We're going to watch another terrible musical. But, there you go. You have A Star is Born, A Star is Born, A Star is Born, A Star is Born.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening, and now you know more.
Do we need to pick our next?
We're going to do Sabrina next, because this is going to go up before Sabrina, because we decided to do this. But next will be the one we rolled previously, which is Sabrina. So we're going to watch some more old-timey movies with the old-timey misogyny, yay! And age discrepancy, yay! Until next time, I'm Carol.
And I'm Mia.